Okay, I've spoken about animation on this channel a few times now, and I've frequently discussed some of the best that animation has to offer. I've never really gone into the worst it has though, and believe you me, there is some real shit in here. Now, while most genres or categories have good movies and a few bad, animation really does take this to the extreme. For every Spider-Verse you have an Emoji Movie, for every Last Airbender you have a Cars 2. And in this video, I'm going to be going down the rabbit hole to find the stupidest, the laziest, and the worst that animation has to offer. Shout out to Semideus for creating this iceberg, and without further ado, this is the Bad Animation Iceberg Explained. Up first we have the Emoji Movie. I think I've spoken about the Emoji Movie before. Yeah, I did a little bit in my cancelled movies iceberg. There's no defending this film. It's the definition of raking in on trends. I mean, it's a movie based on the faces you send in a text that gives context behind a message. Why did there have to be a 90-minute film about it? If you haven't seen the Emoji Movie, don't bother, don't let them win. What's mad though is that Sony went from creating one of the worst animated movies, if not just movies full stop of all time with the Emoji Movie, to one of the best animated movies with Spider-Verse the very next year. It's an inexcusable cash grab, but everyone knows the Emoji Movie, so I'm just going to move on. Killer Bean is perhaps the best animated movie ever made. I have no idea why it's on this list. The movie starts off with a 2-minute unexplained dance sequence, and it only gets better. The animation is actually kind of fluid, and the premise is essentially John Wick. I think in the tags they call him Keanu Reeves or something. The fact that these beans are just running around spouting out badass one-liners and kicking ass is hilarious, and even though the character designs are a bit shit, overall, I'd very much recommend Killer Bean as a movie to watch with your friends after a couple of beers if you're of legal drinking age. This movie is a real experience, I'll give you that. I mean, look at these glorious reviews. My favourite parts of the movie is when, you know, a bean gets knocked out or dies and their body just turns to ragdoll physics and they just fly all over the place. I mean, when you're thinking of film as an art form, you have Citizen Kane, Casablanca, The Godfather, Killer Bean. See, it works. Food Fight might just go down as the worst flop at the box office of all time. I haven't seen the movie in full, but I've seen reviews of it, and all I have to say is, what the f***? Why wasn't this cancelled? I mean, the entire thing looks like storyboard art, but so much worse. The CG is simply awful. And a warning to aspiring animators, if you don't have the budget or the ability, don't make a CG animated movie. They look terrible. Just go 2D animated, just draw it in, because at least it won't look cheap. The entire thing looked rushed. Charlie Sheen was in the cast. The production cost upwards of 100 million with advertisements included, I'm sure. They spent 100 million on what could have been spent on feeding the hungry, getting the homeless off the streets, or improving infrastructure, and instead we got Food Fight. They made about 73 grand back. I mean, what is this? Christopher Lloyd was trolling for sure. It's notoriously shit. The Annoying Orange Show is just another example of studio executives not knowing anything about young people. Future Cartoon Network CEOs, I tell you now, what works on a 5-minute YouTube video, surprisingly, might not work in a 20-minute episode of a network television show built in with story arcs and plot development. The Annoying Orange Show ran for one season back in 2012 to a horrendous reception. The reviews were awful, the concept was annoying, the entire thing had such a low budget production value, weirdly lower than the YouTube videos that they made. I mean, and you know parents that won't let their children watch certain shows in fear that it might impact their development. Well, this show is a prime example. I say watch 5 minutes of this and your IQ is going to drop at least 10 points. And I know I might not be the first to say this, but the Annoying Orange, yeah, still going on. They ran out of food to kill, and so now they just do this. I mean, what is this? The Problem Solvers, also known as the ugliest cartoon ever conceived. Even without delving into the content of this show, which is just as awful, this series would want to make me claw my eyes out after 2 minutes. No child should watch this shit. Okay, let's put awful looks aside and have a glance at some of the loglines for each episode. We have classic, intriguing concepts such as Horace, Alfie and Rober try to destroy a giant rollerblade that appeared in their yard. but eventually end up getting lost in the forest. Mermaid Raid. The problem solvers must free a captive mermaid from a gang of unruly porpoises. What is that word? What kind of child is meant to know what that means? Porpoises? But there's just one catch. Alfie is terrified of the water. And my personal favourite, the problem solvers wake up to discover a problem. Everything in Farnborough seems to be different. Awful concept, awful show from start to finish. It is insufferable. If you watch my Pixar Ranked, you would know that Ratatouille is my all-time favourite Pixar film, and that's why it brings me great pain to even diverge my eyes towards this cash grab abomination. I mean, what can I say about Ratatouille, right? At least it's short. At only 44 minutes, it's neither the length of a short film, nor as long as a feature film. Brought to you by the same people who made Little Panda Fighter, Ratatouille was simply made to capitalise on grandparents who heard their child liked Ratatouille and mistook it for a timeless classic. The character designs are awful, the lips aren't even synced with the voices half the time, the characters are beyond forgettable, the dialogue is hokey, it deserves no praise. It's lazy filmmaking. So lazy. So lazy. I cannot describe how lazy this is. If you want a good low budget parody film, and this is going to be my stamp of approval, watch The Spaghetti Man, available on Amazon Prime, at least it is in the UK. It's about a man who gains superpowers after he eats a bowl of radioactive spaghetti. Sounds stupid, but I would rather watch that 10 times than Ratatouille once. As a Ratatouille superfan, this movie personally offends me to my core. It's awful, it's lazy, it's despicable, it's an awful, awful movie. What's up? I'm going to be honest with you, I have not and I will not watch this movie, because what the actual can I say about this? I refuse to waste 40 minutes of my life on this piece of shit. The same things I said about Ratatouille apply. It's the same company trying to trick people who don't know any better with a similar name and cover art to Pixar or DreamWorks classic movies that took time, dedication and effort. These horrible 3D animations are just crap in every aspect. I can't say a single good thing about any of them because they're just trying to make a quick buck by creating the lowest quality movie imaginable. And I actually said movie out loud. This isn't a movie. It doesn't deserve that name. I'll call them disasters. They create the lowest quality disaster possible, and they've probably made a few bucks from it because they're cult classics now, and it's shameless. It's capitalizing on people that have actually put hard work and dedication into their craft and trying to trick people into watching your piece of shit. I said enough about it, I'm going to move on. Joshua and the Promised Land. These visuals on this video are just going to be obscene. This is going to be a psychedelic experience. This movie is, I mean, I don't even know what it's meant to be, to be honest. The fact that this cost $350,000 to make is a joke. The characters' mouths don't even move. Everyone looks weirdly naked, and this purple cat narrator is... I mean, this movie is a madman's dream. Who greenlit this? Who watched through this movie and went, yeah, let's release this one. The lessons they try and get across are awful. Quote, okay, and I mean this is an actual line from the movie. Quote, listen Joshua, sometimes a no means maybe, but when it comes from God, no means no, capiche? Like what? No means maybe? At its heart, this is a religious movie, and while there's a way to bring across religious themes and ideas to a movie that doesn't feel overly forced and out of place, Joshua and the Promised Land does none of that. I mean, it's kind of in the name, right? If you watch this movie, you kind of know that it's going to be a religious film. It's just too on the nose. I feel like it's just not good. It's just plain not good. Don't watch it. Avoid it like the plague. Rap City Kids believe in Santa. I don't even know if I can call this an animated movie, because to be called an animated movie, there has to be some sort of animation, right? It doesn't look as animated as it does, like these characters and objects around them are just having seizures for 42 minutes. There's a lot of stuff in here that is just copy and pasted from the internet, and they just kind of stop motion it so that it moves. I mean, this film is the worst Christmas drug trip ever experienced. The characters don't blink very often, if at all. When they do, it's creepy. The voice acting might be some of the most stiff I've heard. But, having said that, and I'm probably going to get a bit of hate for this, I feel like there was actually a little bit of work put in here. At least it rhymed in a few parts, like a lot of Christmas movies do. Having said that though, they try and rhyme a few times and fail horribly, so not every rhyme is perfect. There are a few song numbers throughout that don't want me to chop off my ears, even though a few of them are hot ass. And the protagonist is the slightest bit likable, I guess. That's really all the good stuff I can say. It's, again, mercifully short at only 42 minutes, because imagine this shit being 90 minutes. I mean, this might be one of the worst animated of the lot so far, but I'll give it at least there are some very, very small silver linings throughout. The Nut Shack is the most annoying adult animated show I have ever had the displeasure of watching a single episode of. No adults would laugh at this. Only 11-year-olds that want to be edgy. Everyone is a stereotype to the max, and it's infuriating to watch any character even open their poorly animated mouths. Let's just take a listen to the intro, and you might get a little glimpse of how annoying this show is.
It's the Nut Shack. It's the Nut Shack. It's the Nut Shack. It's the Nut Shack.
It's like that for most of the intro, followed by a rap about crass, on-the-nose bullshit, followed by more "It's the Nut Shack." This show has the least subtext I have ever seen. I mean, the sound mixing is awful. A lot of the time I can't even hear what the characters are saying over the sound effects or background. It looks like something out of a porn website advertisement. I still can't get over how annoying the voice acting and the writing is. This show is so absolutely infuriating to me. Avoid it like the plague and go watch South Park instead. The Samsonizades is the Georgian ripoff of The Simpsons. Now, there's a lot to digest here. First off, how dare you rip off The Simpsons? Also, you did it in CGI, even though we both know that you never actually had the capabilities to pull this off, like every other CGI entry here. Additionally, if by some miracle you're watching this, Samsonizades creators, I'm going to tell you a little secret, right? Each episode of yours averages around 20 minutes, and that's being kind of generous. Your intro is a minute and a half, meaning that at a generous estimation, 7% of your show is the introduction, if not more. This thing is an abomination. It looks more like it was made on Microsoft Paint than in some sort of weird CG animated studio. These character designs are so ugly, and for some reason Bart and Lisa are much older than 8 and 10. There are no words to explain how much my mind just tells me to move on, because this thing legitimately pisses me off. It's ugly, unoriginal, and unneeded, so let's just move. Squirrel and Hedgehog, released under the name Brave Soldiers in English. Now, you might be wondering why this might be so far down on the iceberg. You know, the animation seems decent, the character designs are fine. Well, my friends, Squirrel and Hedgehog is North Korean propaganda. I mean, I feel so bad for the poor North Korean children that are subjected to watch this as their only form of entertainment. Because it's propaganda, no wonder they're brainwashed. They do it to their children from the earliest of ages. And, you know, a lot of young boys in the West like playing with toy soldiers out in the garden. But this is pure propaganda designed to make upcoming generations hate North Korea's enemies. I'm surprised that it got a Western dub, to be fair, and perhaps that makes the West know better, but I don't know. I don't think it was very successful over here. I don't know why it got a Western dub. I mean, I don't know. I have no clue who took a North Korean show and was like, oh yeah, we need to make that for American audiences. But it's just kind of sad overall that a bunch of North Korean children are raised to hate Western ideology over cartoon propaganda that's directed at 5-year-olds. Postman Pat the movie. Now, most of my audience is comprised of Americans, and so I have to ask American viewers, do you know who Postman Pat is? He's quite a big children's character over in England, but I don't think he has the international appeal. Basically, he's a postman, and I mean, that's probably about it. I guess he has a black and white cat. I'm wondering why he was actually at any point so popular over here. He delivered Post. The movie seems to be about him after he's won a singing competition and he can fly a helicopter and robots want to take over the world and there's a guy that seemingly wants to murder this simple postman. I mean, what can you say about it? And I mean, you have to ask why he still keeps his job as a postman if he's so talented at singing and flying helicopters. Also, the trailer gives away the true villain of the story as if it wasn't obvious. Unneeded, didn't need to be made, and there was no reason to beef up Postman Pat into a Mary Sue. The animation doesn't actually look half bad, but I just think it was unneeded. Go for a Punch is potentially fake, I guess, maybe? Its existence is unconfirmed as far as I'm aware, but if you didn't know, it's an allegedly very brutal anime from back in the 80s in which 9 schoolgirls are locked in a bathroom with no windows or doors and each die one by one in a very brutal fashion. The anime could just be a creepypasta designed to scare you, and again, as far as I'm aware, there's never actually been any found footage of the show. Any footage that people claim to be found is just fake. Now, people that were interested in its legitimacy have banded together to create subreddits, r/Sasuke Sanobashi if you're interested, or r/Saskian no Batishtu. I don't know how to pronounce the words, but I'm going to link them in the description. But basically, they banded together to launch investigations to try and find out if it was ever actually made. Some of them have even scoured on the dark web to find this stuff. There have been hoaxes and fake clips designed to try and trick people, but again, as far as we know, if it does exist, it seems to be lost media. But yeah, regardless, if you're interested in trying to find out a little bit more about it, because it is quite an interesting concept, I'm going to link both Reddits in the description. Finally, we have the Me movie. How is it possible that this is yet again the deepest down thing on an iceberg that I've covered? As I said in my cancelled movie Iceberg, which you should go watch after this, by the way, it's a good thing that this film never saw the light of day because it's Hollywood money grubbing at its finest, and any movie that's dedicated to memes will fail. Hollywood does not have a good track record with social media and the internet, and the fact that it was never made calms me at night. It soothes me to my core. That's it from me. Again, shout out to Semi Deus for making this iceberg. I've seen his name popping around the iceberg subreddit a few times, so I'm going to leave a link to his iceberg in the description if you want to find the original and look up any entries that I missed out for various reasons. If you're new and you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing. We're nearing 2,000 subscribers now, and so every subscription is very much appreciated. Drop us a like if you wish, join my Discord, link in the description as always, follow me on Twitter at FoxAkimbo, and send iceberg charts to foxakimbo@gmail.com for a chance to be shouted out in a future video. Please let me know down in the comments what you'd like to see me do next, as I'm only 34 videos in and I'm already out of ideas. Thank you for watching.